And welcome back to NBC3 News at 6.
We told you about the sanctions against Penn State at the top of the broadcast today. Brent Axe joins us now, of course, known for his talk show on The Score. And Brent, your reaction, how do you summarize this NCAA penalty?
You know, Matt, there's a popular TV show that's on now, The Walking Dead. I mean, that's what Penn State is. SMU back in the early 90s got what was known as the death penalty. Okay, they shut the program down. This is shutting the program down without shutting it down. They have they have limited scholarships going forward. You have a 4-year bowl ban, limited TV exposure. Everything that Bill O'Brien, the new head coach there, needs to build a program, he doesn't have the tools for. And you're competing against Michigan and Ohio State and all these major SEC programs, and now you're basically doing it, you know, with one hand tied behind.
Yeah, they dropped down to Youngstown, Ohio status.
They really did.
You know, very quickly, which is stunning.
So what does it mean for Syracuse University?
It's an interesting thing, Jackie, because Syracuse recruits against Penn State anyway. And they now have an advantage over Penn State. But you got to be sensitive to this. You've got some kids there at that program that committed to Penn State for a reason. So now how do you move in there and say, hey, listen, we know what's going on now. We're here for you. If you want to come to Syracuse, here's the deal. But you have to do it, because the way college football is these days, if you don't do it, someone else is going to, especially when you've got programs we just mentioned at Ohio State, Michigan, right in their own conference that probably have already done that. So Syracuse definitely has to make an effort here and try and move in on some players that, you know, were probably already in the mix for Penn State and Syracuse to begin with. But now, again, you've got that rare advantage. So you got to give it a shot.
It's important to keep in mind, too, as much as Penn State historically, before the sex scandals, was vilified in our community, they were also one of the more popular teams in our community. A lot of Penn State grads, people would make that trip, SU, Penn State.
Long-time rival.
And I can remember going to games in Archbold, the Dome, you know, when they beat Penn State that one time. Then there was the big gap, and then recently. So Joe Paterno, this guy had such a legacy. Now it's almost hard to understand.
You can't get more opposite ends of the spectrum. Joe Paterno used to stand for everything that was right about college football, everything that was pure about college football. We did it the right way at Penn State, and now it's the exact opposite of that. And that legacy and what it means, they're taking statues down, they're removing things that reference Joe Paterno. I mean,
his record as the winningest coach.
In your wildest dreams, could you ever think that would happen? That's how severe this is.
But
it's
still,
incredible.
People are,
I don't think people understand, especially in that community. The Penn State world doesn't fully feel it.
They really don't, and it's interesting because Penn State it's its own little world there in central Pennsylvania. Not that they're isolated from the rest of the world, but it's so tight knit. And I don't know if they're ever really going to come to grips with how much of a role Paterno had in this, and he had a major role in it, unfortunately. And it took something like this to override everything else Joe Paterno did. But unfortunately, I think that's what we're looking at here.
Thank you, Brent, for stopping in. We appreciate your perspective every time you come by.
Thanks for having me.